Hey everybody, this is Mrs. Ludis again. We're going to switch our attention now to the most missed questions that we think you can get right on the calculator portion. Okay, so if I scroll down here a little bit, we're going to start with question number 8. Okay, so this one says, for what value of n is the absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? Okay, so let's see. I'm going to set this equation equal to 0. Okay, so if I went to solve this, I would first subtract 1. Okay, now, in this step, I have an absolute value equal to a negative. Okay, we know that absolute value makes everything positive, so this is not possible. Okay, so there is no such value of n that would make that expression equal to 0. Okay, so that was a really quick one. You just need to understand that absolute value is always positive. Okay, moving on to number 9. Okay, so it gives us this equation. Okay, it's about sound waves and temperature. Okay, one thing that you're going to see with the SAT is sometimes they give you a lot of information that, I'm going to be really honest, you don't need. Okay, so they give us this equation. Okay, if I skip to the bottom, they say, which of the following expresses the air temperature in terms of the speed of a sound wave? Okay, and one thing I want you to notice is if you look at all of those answer choices, every single one of them has T equal to something. Okay, that's a really good indicator of what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be taking this equation and solving it for T instead of A. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite that equation and I'm going to get T by itself. Okay, so while it's cool what it's doing with sound waves and temperature and all that fun stuff, it's not really necessary to know for this problem. Okay, so don't waste your time reading every single word of every problem because you're never going to finish. Okay, I just need to solve this equation for T. So I'm going to subtract 1052. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 1.08. And that gets T alone. Okay, so I go find that option A minus 1052 over 1.08 is option A. Okay? Moving on to number 14. Okay, so it's giving us a bunch of data on the length of fish. Okay, so this is a statistics problem. Okay, it's about mean, median, and range. And it's saying that this measurement at the end, that 24, was in error. Okay, you can see there it's pretty different than the rest of the data. We call that an outlier. Okay, so what we're going to do is say, if I get rid of that 24, how is that going to affect my data? What is it going to affect the most? The mean, the median, or the range? Okay, so one thing that I'm going to tell you right now is if I take out a value at the very end of a set of data, that's not really going to mess with the median very much. I'm still going to kind of be in this area somewhere. And you could go ahead and calculate that. That'd be great. But in my opinion, that's a waste of time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the mean and I'm going to find the range with and without the 24. So the range is going to be really quick. So let's pretend the 24 was still there. Range is the difference between the largest and the smallest value. So the range with the 24 would be 24 minus 8, which is 16. Okay, now if we remove the 24, the largest value is now 16. So our range would be 16 minus 8, which is 8. Okay, so it's a difference of 8 for the range. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with the mean. Okay, so mean is the average. Okay, so I'm going to add up all my values and I'm going to divide by how many there are. So this does take a little bit. So I'm going to add all these up. I am using my calculator because it is the calculator portion. Let's see, there's 4 12s plus 3 13s. Oops, 3, not 13 of them. Plus 14, plus 14, plus 15, plus 15, plus 16, plus 24. Okay, so if I use all the data points, it adds up to 262. Okay, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 3, so 21 values. So I'm going to divide that by 21. And I get an average of 12.47. Okay, now get rid of the 24. If I do 262 minus 24, that adds up to 238. but I also got rid of a value. So now there's only 20 of them. So I'm going to do 238 divided by 20, which is 11.9. Okay, so you can see here that the range changed way more than the mean did. Okay, so the answer is C, the range. Okay, just take a little bit to find those values, but that's how you would approach that one. Okay, let's move on to 15. Okay, so 15 and 16 are both dealing with this graph. Okay, so we identified these because I'm going to be really honest, this is Algebra 1 material, and that's good news. If you missed it, I really think you can get these ones right. Okay, so here, let's just look at what this graph is talking about. This is a linear function that's about the cost of renting a boat. Okay, so obviously the longer that you rent the boat, the more money you're going to have to pay, right? Okay, so that's why we have an increasing function. Okay, so the very first question is just interpreting the graph. It says, what does the c-intercept represent? So c is cost, that's our y-axis. So our y-intercept is right here at 5. Okay, since that's at a time of 0 hours, okay, that means I just got the boat. I haven't had it for any time, but you still have to pay money whether or not you took it out or not. Okay, so that's the initial cost of renting the boat. Okay, so I've had it for 0 hours. This is my original down payment. Okay, and when you see this word initial, that's a really good indicator that it's your y-intercept. Okay. Question 16 is, what is the relationship between h and c? Okay, so basically I'm writing the linear equation. Okay, so these are all in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, b is our y-intercept. That's what we just identified. That's 5. Okay, so what I like to do is, process of elimination. I'm already down to b and c just by finding the y-intercept. So the only other thing I have to find now is the slope. Okay, so it's either going to be 3/4 or 3. And this is one of those times where the SAT is just trying to be tricky. Because if you look at this really quickly, it looks like I went up 3 and over 4. Okay, so a lot of people, I'm assuming a lot of you got this wrong because you picked B, because you saw that slope of 3/4. However, look at the axes. Okay, when I go from here to here, it only went over 1. Okay, so it went from 5 to 8, which means it went up 3 over 1, which is a slope of 3. Okay, so you should have chosen C. Okay, I definitely wanted to go over that one because super easy mistake to make by looking at that 3/4. Okay? 17. The complete graph of a function is shown. For what value of x is the value at its minimum? Okay, so to find the minimum, we just want to look at the lowest point on the graph, which is right here. Okay, and it says for what value of x? Okay, so this is the ordered pair, 1, 2, 3, -3, -2. So the x value is -3. Okay, if you did not read that correctly, it would be really easy to pick C because that lowest value is a y value of -2. So just be careful there. All right, moving right along, we're going to go to 21. Okay, this is a probability question. So it's really easy to get bogged down by all of this information. Okay, but let's try to just skim it a little bit. So I have this chart about dreams. Okay, so group X and group Y, it's counting the number of dreams that they had, and it kind of tallies it for you, which is also going to be helpful when I do my probability. So let's get down to what they're actually asking me here. If a person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream, what is the probability that the person belonged to group Y? Okay, so let's break that down. We first want to identify how many people recalled at least one dream. Okay, so if I look at my chart, I don't care about these people who did not recall any dreams. I care about these people who recalled at least one. Okay, so if I look at my probability here, I'm going to add all those numbers up, and they're actually tallied for you here. 39 plus 125 is 164. Okay, so that's our total, that's our denominator, and we want to say what's the probability that the person that we pick is from group Y. Okay, so if you look at the box that I drew, The people from group Y gets even smaller. Okay, 11 plus 68 is 79. So that probability is 79 out of 164, which is C. Okay, so again, don't get bogged down by all of the extra information. Okay, there's a lot of these types of problems with probability where you just have to identify the columns that you actually need. Okay, keep going. 25. Okay, so the equation above, we have a quadratic equation, expresses height of a ball in terms of time. Okay, so height is ht is time. Okay, and then it says initial velocity of 25. They already put that in the equation for you. Okay, so it wants to know, after approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? Okay, so let's think about this. Here's my ball. Okay, it gets launched, it goes up, it comes back down, and it hits the ground. So basically, we want to know how long it's in the air. Okay, so here's the ball on the ground here. When that ball hits the ground, its height is 0. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the original equation, plug in 0 for height, and solve. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, we know that there's a lot of different ways that you can solve a quadratic. Okay, you have the quadratic formula, you have completing the square. I do not recommend either of these choices. You can't do the square root method because of this t right here. Okay, so if I were doing this problem, I would just take out a GCF of t. And then set each of those pieces equal to 0. Okay, if I set this outside piece equal to 0, I get a time of 0. That doesn't make sense. Okay, if it went up, it did a trip, it came back down and hit the ground, it was not in the air for 0 seconds. So this answer doesn't make sense. Okay, and now when I set this part equal to 0, this is going to give me my answer. Oops, not t. So subtract 25. And divide by 4.9. So 25 divided by 4.9 is 5.10, about. Okay, and this here, it says approximately how many seconds, so that's closest to 5 seconds. Okay, so it went up, it came back down, and it hit the ground after being in the air for 5 seconds. Okay? Couple more here, 28. Okay, so if we graph the system of inequalities, which of the quadrants contains no solutions? So for this one, what I would do is just make a really rough sketch of what's going on. Okay, so y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1. That's a line with a y-intercept of 1 and a slope of 2. So I'm just going to do a couple points here. Up 2, over 1, up, or go down 2, left 1. Okay, this is going to be a solid line. And since it's greater than or equal to, I would be shading above that line. Okay, so I'm going to be really honest. If you look at this, well, I guess we still have the possibility that it could be shaded the other way. Okay, so I'll graph the other one as well. Okay, so the other one, y is greater than 1/2 x minus 1. Okay, so this one has a y-intercept of -1 and a slope of 1/2. So up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2. Doesn't really matter, but this would be a dotted line. Good enough. And then it's also shaded above. Okay, so it'd be above because it's greater than. Okay, so our answers are where the shading overlaps, which would be up here. And that shading is never going to hit quadrant 4. Okay, so quadrant 4 does not have any solutions to that inequality. Okay, we're almost done here. There's maybe one more. Yep, 35. Okay, so here I have a silo. It gives us the volume. Okay, so the volume of the silo is 72 pi cubic yards. It wants to know the diameter. Okay, so the good thing about the SAT is they give you some, where are they? They give you some formulas, which is fantastic. Okay, so they give us the volume of a cylinder. You just got to be able to find it. Here it is. Okay, so don't panic and think you need to memorize these. Okay, if it helps you, volume is always area of the base times the height. So a cylinder has the base of a circle. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So it's pi r squared times the height. Okay, if you don't think you're going to remember that, don't panic. It will be given to you. So we're using this formula, pi r squared h. Okay, so let me go back to where we were here. Okay, so I'm going to write down that formula and fill in what I know. Pi r squared h. So they actually gave us the volume. So that's going in for V. Okay, we're looking for the diameter, which we'll be able to use by, we'll be able to find by using the radius, which I don't know yet. And then if you look at the picture, the height is 8 yards. Okay, remember the height is the distance between the two bases. Okay, so this is times 8. Okay, so I need to solve for r. So one good thing too here is that since there's a pi on each side, those will cancel. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. 72 divided by 8 is 9. So 9 is equal to r squared. When I square root both sides, I get that the radius is 3 yards. Okay, diameter is double the radius, so that means our diameter is 6 yards. Okay, so once you have that formula, you just plug in what you know and then solve for what you don't. Okay, I believe that's it. Let me double check. Yep, so that's it for today. Have a good day, you guys. See you later.